Well, it's one for the money, two for the show, three to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you step on my blue suede shoe. Well, you can do anything but lay off of my blue suede shoe. Well, you can knock me down, step in my face, slander my name all over the place. I'll do anything that you want to do, but honey, lay off of my shoes and don't you step on my blue suede shoe. Well, you can do anything but lay off of my blue suede shoe. Yeah. You can burn my house, steal my car, drink my liquor from an old fruit jar. Do anything that you want to do, but honey, lay off of my shoes and don't you step on my blue suede shoe. Well, you can do anything but lay off of my blue suede shoe. One for the money, two for the show. You get ready now, go, cat, go, but don't step on my blue suede shoe. Well, you can do anything but lay off of my blue suede shoe. Blue suede shoe, blue suede shoe, yeah. Blue suede shoe, baby. Blue suede shoe. You can do anything but lay off of my blue suede shoe.
Welcome back, David Penn here. This is the Professor Penn podcast, episode number 125, The Pope, the Cardinal, and the Snake. Started out with the great Elvis Presley, Don't Step on My Blue Suede Shoes. Tanner noted in a recent episode that I'm wearing blue suede shoes lately. They're on today. And the reason why we don't step on the blue suede shoes is it ruins them. Someone might ask, geez, Professor Penn, you're complaining about your finances. How can you have blue suede shoes? I thought about that because I was complaining about the brake job expense, and somebody says, what kind of vehicle needs $5,000 for brakes? You know, I was, and I've said I'm a reformed globalist. And we're going to talk about pride today. In fact, I'm going to find this one. We're going to start out with this because it really bespeaks my condition, and it's a beautiful, we're going to come back to pride, but I'm going to say, because it really, it really bespeaks the condition I'm in. Please let me find this. I know this is not very organized, but sometimes we just come up with a little improv. And I'm looking for this, and I'm going to find it, and it's going to be quite indicative of what we want to. Here we go. This is me. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. It is better to be of lowly spirit with the poor than to divide the spoil with the proud. And that's just the whole program. So, I have an inventory of stuff. I got a car from when I was balling. I got shoes from the days gone by. And I gave up a life by choice to pursue with full vigor the search for truth. Now, I was thinking about that just driving in this morning, how important this is to me. Whether I become important is not in my own hands. But the search for truth to me is paramount. And it occurred to me that the search for truth is the manifestation of peace, which is all the more, shall we say, ironic this morning because my printers weren't working and I was ready to commit mayhem. Good morning, Tanner.
Good morning, David.
You saw me at my worst today, right?
Yeah. We got the printer working though, so we're all
But
good
I
now.
was ready. Certain things will trigger me because although people say I'm mellow and I am now. I'm a lot more mellow. But in my younger days, I was quick to anger and quick to get in a fight. And that's just the way I was. Brings up my brother Tom. My brother and Tom and I had a schism. We're in the process of putting our relationship back together. Because I read the first paragraph. He sent me a beautiful letter. I haven't had time to read it with the kind of attention I want to get it. The first line was, "We're two alpha males." Yes, that does lead to problems. So without taking you down this rat hole any farther, the Pope, the Cardinal, and the Snake. This is a very important podcast because I'm spending a lot of time talking to people. And what I'm recognizing is somebody's crazy. Either I'm crazy, please call me crazy, or other people are crazy. Because here's the bid and the ask. Here's the gap. I've come to believe that man's natural state and woman's natural state, excuse me, ladies, it's my generation, humankind's natural state is well-being and peaceful. And that somehow there's some kind of plan. We've become unwell and very conflict orientated. So conflict orientated, in fact, that we have a large percentage of our population that really truly believe that the United States of America is the greatest country on earth, is uh, destined to be the policeman of the New World Order, that our military is righteous and right. And just this past week, I've got a really good friend. I haven't met her. She goes by the handle Scrapping Beauty, and she was watching a podcast I did with Royce, a Hebrews edition, which I didn't even listen to the broadcast. And apparently, and I don't remember saying it, I said that our military veterans were pampered. And boy, did she rip me up for that. And then because she put that into Getter, I've been getting a steady stream of veterans jumping on, piling on. And this is really interesting to me because I go to these political meetings and Tom Emmer strides in, for example, House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, lawyer, politician, strides into the room and he says, "If you're a veteran or a first responder, please stand up." And then everybody claps for these people. And I said these people were pampered. And is that not kind of a pampering? You know, there's nobody gets out of this deal alive, at least so far, except Christ. And he died and was raised up, if that's your religion and that's what your faith is. But generally speaking, 100% of the time, we live and we die. So military people, and you know, my best friends, okay, my best memories. So it's not like I'm without insight into this. Uh, they choose, because we have an all-volunteer army, to go into military service, as all the veterans are that are listening to me. And why I'm saying it's my best friends and my best memories because it is. I mean, the best years of my life was 18 to 40 when I was spending a lot of time with military, active and retired military. And there was a diversity of views there. But what brought everybody together was everybody was training in the art of survival. And, I trained with a wide diversity of military people. And I do have a great deal of insight and love for that path. But now I'm 64 years old, and I'm not supposed to say my age, but I don't even remember that. I mean, it is part of my strategy for staying alive, but it's so ancient in my life, it's so long ago, it's not really part of my current self-image, those years. It's part of me, but it's really kind of meaningless to me. And, I'm not a veteran, so I don't wanna portray myself as being one. But every person is going through experiences that are life and death experiences. And everybody dies in the end, often kicking and screaming for morphine. And we have our country wrapped into a framework of slavery, drugs, and piracy, which I think most of us have some sympathy to this idea. But what is the piracy part really about? It's about war. And our economy and our culture, while seemingly to be materialist and in many from one lens of description frivolous, materialist and frivolous, right below that surface is a highly organized 50-state strategy of supporting the military. That's what we do. So when we go to these political meetings and you look at who's leading the parties, they're in many cases ex-military. Enough cases that I think the ex-military people, the 2 million people, is the most effective lobby in the country. It's not a conspiracy. It's not organized. It's just how the system works. When people go through basic training and then, take on the thinking of the military mindset and then spend a career in the military and then have all their self-image wound up in the military, uh, it's a cultural manifestation that leads every problem that we have to be a nail, and the military is a hammer. And I'm just going through this. I posted up extensive historical information from 1975 to 2023 about how our government and how NATO was involved in triggering this problem in the Ukraine, and people just cast it aside as if it doesn't matter because whatever we do is right. Whatever the United States of America does is righteous. Okay, this is a cultural manifestation, and I know I'm out on a limb here, and I certainly don't mean any disrespect to any veterans. I really don't. The people that served that were down in the, you know, in the machine, it's not their decision. It's the decision of the senior people and the politicians that they work with that create the military posture and footprint and strategy that is deployed throughout the world. But we're going to die by this sword. I mean, you just have to understand, military or not, ex-military, active duty military, civilian, whoever we are, we've had a good run since 1946, a very good run. And you've got to be dumber than dirt not to see it's coming to the end. Yes, I got a little pissed off about that because I see all these people that just ignore, they just ignore what's going on. That we can just keep running up debt forever, that the border's open, that the wars are gaining in intensity throughout the world. By the time I see you again, there'll probably be a war in Lebanon. Israel's getting ready to attack Lebanon. What are the Iranians going to do? What's the United States and the NATO allies going to do when Iran comes into the war? This stuff is serious. This is not a game. It's a game if you're looking at it on TV and then you go about your business. But if you really have a stake in the game, and I do, I'm disturbed by these things because they're really kind of unnecessary. The real issue here is they're unnecessary. We believe a set of histories and norms and values that are not the truth. They're a truth from a street corner. There's other street corners to look at these things from. And what we have to, or what I want to present to you is the reason it is the way it is because it benefits a handful of people. Doesn't benefit me, doesn't benefit my kids, doesn't benefit Tanner. And I mean, I guess all the people, colonel and below, that were in the military and survived it, it benefits them in terms of their ongoing residual pensions and medical treatment, which I'm not trying to impugn that by saying pampering. I'm not talking about the money. I'm talking about the mindset. The pass people get to ignore the search for truth because they're depending on the military, which is by definition materialist. By definition, military matters while they're wrapped in the cloth of valor and honor, and all those things matter. Because I was in a society, a secret society that developed that, in the participants. So I know they're real things. Bravery and honor and sacred honor and honesty and fidelity, all the things that get built into military training, they're real things. That's the benefit that the members get. But the actual execution of military strategy is as materialist as it gets. So we got materialism and we got the world of the spirit, the search for truth, and they're two poles, two descriptions of the same reality, and they're right now irreconcilable. We have an irreconcilable argument because I'm talking to people and they think I am crazy. And I look at them and I think to myself, how is it that it's possible for my fellow citizens to see history without any input from any other street corner but the one they stand on? I certainly see that Russia has an imperialist history. I understand the Russians as well as I do. It was the first language in my home. So it's not like I don't have some insight into the Russians. I wasn't raised to like the Russians. My family ran away from there because they were being so horribly discriminated against. So there's no love of the Russians. I'm not a Russian apologist or a Putin apologist. I just know that we, the people, through our democratic republic, have a say in how this country governs its affairs. And when I see us with a $35 trillion debt, an open border, and in an endless war, and this is the outcome, it's not an accident. This is what we voted for. This is what we've created. And when I say we, why am I blaming it on the Russians? I have no process for adjudicating or influencing Russian foreign policy or Russian domestic policy unless I support going to war with the Russians and destroying their country, which seems to be the sentiment of a lot of my fellow citizens. As if Russia doesn't have 5,500 nukes, which we're going to talk about if we get to it tonight. Before we do, let me start out because I'm so wrought in the spirit about this. The gap is so great. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the light and the dark. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating me in your image. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me an American. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me free. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for healing the blind. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for feeding the people. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for releasing the bound. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for raising up the downtrodden. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the heavens and the earth. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for providing for all my needs. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for directing my path. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for our American courage. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for crowning America with glory. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for restoring strength to the weary. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for sending your only Son to die on the cross that I might be saved. Forgive me, my Father, for I have sinned. Pardon me, my King, for I have willfully transgressed. For you pardon and forgive. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds, who is gracious and ever willing to forgive. I was thinking about the Blue Suede Shoes, Elvis Presley. You know, have you ever watched any Elvis Presley, Tanner?
I've seen that clip and it's very uncomfortable for me. Can I be honest for a second?
Sure. Be honest all the time.
He is obviously not playing that guitar. If you watch the strumming, it doesn't match the song at all. That video is very uncomfortable for me to watch just because I can't help but notice that he's not actually playing that guitar.
He's lip syncing.
Yeah.
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 Well, okay.
I guess that's what music videos are today.
I guess
but
that's what it is.
it definitely comes off like he's trying to portray like, hey, I'm actually playing this right now.
You
But
know, I never saw Elvis play live. Uh, I was really not into Elvis because Elvis was a man who peaked before I was really involved in popular music. Because in my youngest period, I was only involved in classical music, so I really didn't pay a lot of attention to Elvis. And when I look at that, I see his artistry. I recognize what you're saying about being uncomfortable. I mean, I thought about that,
yeah.
but it was available for use on YouTube. So I grabbed it. To be frank with everybody, that's a big issue. We can't monetize when we use these kind of clips, but we can put them up because this is not about making money. This is about the search for truth. And I remember the guy that actually was my senior, uh, who he was the boss, and he used to say that all the time. Don't step on my blue suede shoes. The point being, we all have our limits, right? I take a lot of abuse, a lot, really a lot. Uh, and Tanner saw me reach a limit today. I got pissed today. I was angry. There is a blue suede shoe. There is a limit. There is blue suede shoes, and I'm playing that because we're there. There's a tremendous amount of latitude to love your neighbor as you love yourself, and this goes into the reason why there's militaries. There is evil people in the world. We have the right for self-defense, but let's understand, and we're going to talk about this tonight, that evil or not goodness, evil has got a lot of connotations to it, spiritual connotations, but just not good. It's everywhere. It's inside of me. So I'm interested in picking out the log in my own eye first as a first step. And that brings up the subject of pride. Tanner, can you just play number 2?
But you don't ask with respect. You don't offer friendship. You don't even think to call me Godfather. Instead, you come into my house on the day my daughter's to be married and you ask me to do murder for money.
I ask you for justice.
That is not justice. Your daughter is still alive.
Let him suffer then, as she suffers. How much shall I pay you?
Buonasera. Buonasera. What have I ever done to make you treat me so disrespectfully? If you'd come to me in friendship, then the scum that ruined your daughter would be suffering this very day. And if by chance an honest man like yourself should make enemies, then he would become my enemies. And then they would fear you.
Be my friend? Godfather?
Good.
Well, that scene was about pride. Doesn't seem like it, but there's a lot of pride there. And Bonacera had come to the United States. He'd self-governed. He'd found the courts. He'd found a good life here. That world had disappointed him, had left him without recourse after the violation of his daughter. He had tried to stay away from the Godfather, who he had a relationship with. He come to the Godfather, and the Godfather said, "Bonacera, Bonacera, what have I ever done to earn such disrespect?" The Godfather had pride, Bonacera had pride, and Bonacera deferred to the Godfather because, there's the old story. It's not bragging if it's true. The Godfather was the Godfather. So Bonacera's pride had led him to a place where he was brought low through the violation of his daughter, and he had to subordinate himself to the Godfather. He needed a friend. And I just play this because it reminded me of something that happened this week politically, where there's some very powerful new activists that have come into the uh, local scene, and I've been working with them, and I got kind of a kick out of it because when they first met me, they thought I was uniparty because I wasn't too talkative, and they subsequently discovered that I was on the cutting edge of trying to make things change here. And I have a good relationship with these people, but they went out and did something uh, without my consultation. And I said to them, I on the telephone, I said this, what have I ever done to earn such disrespect? It was a joke. I was making a joke, but it brought up the pride that I felt that they didn't come to me. And it revealed to me, and that's what's great about politics. It's this process of self-improvement. If you're doing it correctly, I have to give up my pride because they're American citizens. They can self-government in any way they want to. And if they choose to come to me for counsel, that's their choice. I have no business feeling upset about it, even when things go wrong, because all things function for good. And it made me think about pride because this military um, pampering Scrapping Beauty is not about the benefits that our valued military veterans are getting. It's not got anything to do with that for me. They serve, they deserve the life that they signed up for. We made a deal with them. And I mean, there's no way I want to question that. But it's the emotional and psychological pampering of creating another yet protected class, like the four biggies, right? The blacks, the Jews, the women, and the gays in the military. We can't talk about these people. Now, I know the military members are not going to like being put in with the blacks, the Jews, the women, and the gays, the four pillars of identity politics. But you question the military people, and they're going to jump on you just like any of the other groups. But these people are organized, not in a conspiracy, but in the way the system works, into a very effective lobby to maintain the military-industrial complex. And if we're not willing to look at this, if we're going to ignore this, we will die by the sword. That's the way it works. Name an empire that went on forever. I'm waiting. Can you come up with an empire that lasted forever? I'm waiting. I hope I made my point. Because these empires, the individual members of the empire derive their self-image from empire. That's the pampering I'm talking about, Scrapping Beauty, not the money. It's the self-image of being part of the empire. When pride comes, then comes disgrace. But with the humble is wisdom. One's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor. A little bit different than being a military member. Even for me, I wasn't in the military, but trained to do those kind of jobs. Highly trained. Not cool. In my opinion, my own self-description, the removing of the log from my own eye. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech, I hate. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. United States of America, a haughty spirit before a fall. Before destruction, a man's heart is haughty, but humility comes before honor. By insolence comes nothing but strife, but with those who take advice is wisdom. Do you see a man who is wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. PhDs, lawyers, doctors, technocrats. Do you see people who are wise in their own eyes? In the pride of his face, the wicked does not seek him. All his thoughts are, there is no God. I'm going to read this one again because this is a choice that I made. I made this choice. It's called Baal Tshuva. It is better to be lowly spirited. It is better to be of a lowly spirit with the poor than to divide the spoils with the proud. A greedy man stirs up strife, but the one who trusts in the Lord will be enriched. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. And here's the one that was written about America. Some of you are going to recognize this. As she glorified herself and lived in luxury, so gave her a like measure of torment and mourning. Try it again. As she glorified herself and lived in luxury, so give her a like measure of torment and mourning. Since in her heart she says, I sit as a queen, I am no widow, and mourning I shall never see. Isn't that how we feel here in the United States of America? I see it every day. I talk to these people every day. We sit as queens, kings and queens. We don't have any suffering or mourning as a country, and we don't even believe we'll ever see it. And this is arrogance. And arrogance is the root cause of all disease. And see it in the news that matters. Russia warns U.S. retaliatory measures will follow. Russia warns the United States that retaliatory measures will follow after deadly attacks this past weekend. I don't really watch the mainstream media very much, and you can put in the live chat. I don't even know if they reported there was 2 tremendous events inside of Russia. There was a deadly strike in the Crimean Peninsula that killed 4 and wounded over 100 civilians that were at the beach. And I was reading on X, people were saying, we warned you, don't go to the beach. And these people are perverse in their minds, arrogant in their hearts. The Kremlin said that American missiles were used in the attack. The Russian Foreign Ministry summoned the U.S. ambassador to express outrage. The Kremlin claims that American ATACMS missiles were used and that Washington provided intelligence to Kyiv to coordinate the attack, and that a U.S. drone was operating near Sevastopol when the assault on the civilian targets took place. According to a statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry, the U.S., quote, has effectively become a party to the war on Ukraine's side, adding, quote, retaliatory measures will certainly follow. The Kremlin said the deadly assault involved 5 ATACMS. The defense minister reported that 4 were shot down and the 5th exploded over a civilian area. Russians labeled the missile barrage a terrorist attack. And then in addition, while that was going on, there was also a coordinated attack in Dagestan. At least 19 people were killed, 25 injured. Places of worship were attacked. These are attacks inside of Russia. They're very serious. This is the next level of escalation as we move up the threat ladder. We'll hear from Vladimir Putin on that at the end of the podcast. In the meantime, all over the world, major countries are building up their nuclear arsenals. Combined nuclear spending on nuclear arsenals rose by $10.7 billion. It reached $91.4 billion on a worldwide basis, which tells me what? A nuclear weapon is a poor man's answer to an existential problem. Because for not a lot of money, you can create a lot of havoc. And, these weapons are being built with the idea we're being told that they'll never be used. Nah, they're going to get used. That's why they're building them. And who is the greatest investor in nuclear technology, nuclear weapons technology? Oh, you'd have to guess, right? Of the $91 billion spent worldwide, $51.5 billion is spent right here by we the people. And guess who kicked off the most recent period of nuclear forces modernization? That would be the great populist and anti-war president, Barack Hussein Obama, who signed legislation that led to the modernization of the entire U.S. nuclear triad that will cost more than $1 trillion over the next 30 years. That would be from Barack Obama. You know, I saw a great meme today. It was 2 pictures of a B-52, and the B-52 was dropping bombs. And on one picture, it was Republicans, and it was a B-52 with its just normal military regalia. And the next picture was, it said Democrats, and the tail fin was in the pride flag, and the nose had Black Lives Matter on it. But they were both dropping bombs. The point was, it really doesn't matter who's in power, because as Frank Zappa said, politics is the de-entertainment division of the military-industrial complex. We're so far from getting ourselves out of this pickle, we don't realize how buried we really are. Because this nuclear thing's going on, the United States has about 5,000 nuclear warheads. The Russians about 5,500. The Chinese are up to 1,000. They're seeking strategic nuclear parity. So they're going to, they got the cash. They can do it. Britain has 225 nukes. The French have nukes. The Pakistanis have nukes. The Iranians probably have nukes. The Israelis have nukes. Hey, nuke here and nuke there, everywhere, nuke, nuke. We got a problem with this thing. And there's no effort right now at nuclear disarmament, which was for quite a while, going back into the 60s, a big deal. Because after the 1963 Cuban Missile Crisis, leadership realized that this could spin out of control. But no, not today. Today, we're looking at more nuclear deployments. NATO is considering whether to move nuclear weapons out of storage and place them on standby. The civilian head of the alliance, a recently emerging neocon of the highest order, Jens Stoltenberg, has called on member states to increase spending on these weapons. In an interview with the Telegraph published this past weekend, Secretary General Stoltenberg said the bloc would soon bring more of its nuclear weapons online. Quote, I won't go into operational details about how many nuclear weapons should be operational and which should be stored, but we are consulting on these issues. Great. More nukes. Isn't that fantastic? And NATO members are now hitting their defense goals. More than 20 NATO members are now hitting the Western Military Alliance's defense spending target. Isn't that what it's all about? Scare everybody half to death so that they're willing to frog up for weapons. So a small group of people benefit because the money goes upstream and all the problems come down on we the people. And we buy into this because we're bought into the self-image of empire. And we have a 2 million person lobby of veterans that if you question them, not their service, not their right to have pensions and health care, question their unceasing loyalty to the post-World War II Democrat liberal order, which is the U.S. military. That is the U.S. military. That's where it came from. That's what it is. It's empire. It's colonialism 2.0. We've been talking about it for 124 episodes, and everybody's been very agreeable about it, except when we start saying, well, how does that work? It's the military, and it's the military members that serve. And then all of a sudden, boy, do I get negative feedback. But we got to think this thing through. I remember a very, very good friend of mine, Chan. I even have a whole podcast about Chan. I was at a meeting with him, and I brought up something about the military, and his father had died in a military incident. He was an Air Force pilot and died in the crash of an Air Force plane. And Chan was furious at me, just furious. It took him many, many weeks, months to think. But, the guy is a very thoughtful person. He thought it through. He actually came to me and he actually made peace with me on the issue because he saw it for himself. He thought about it. And that's all I'm asking Scrapping Beauty and all of our veterans to ask themselves, and all of us to ask ourselves, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? The issue came up from Scrapping Beauty about all the suicides man, what a contradiction between carrying the horrible post-traumatic stress disorder of being at war and love your neighbor as you want to be loved. I mean, the contradiction is unmanageable. It's just unmanageable. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to have post-traumatic stress disorder? That's an admirable goal, isn't it? But now when all these countries are hitting their defense spending, because if you have a defense spend and you don't use up the inventory, then you can't hit your goals the next year, which means there's no money flowing uphill. RFK Jr. came out and said that if he was elected president, he'd cut defense spending by 50%. Well, he's not at the debate Thursday. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. Thursday night, tonight, we're up on Tuesday, June 25th. On Thursday, June 27th, we're going to take a night off because it's the debates. And I'm going to watch them, and I think all of us need to watch them. So rather than compete and draw away from that event, we're going to take a night off on Thursday, and let's all focus on the debates, and we'll come back and talk about what we saw next week. Thank you very much. So with all this fighting going on and all this defense spending and all this nuclearization, where is the resistance going to come to this? And it's going to come from people like me who have the courage to question the narrative. Australian Premier creates ministry in charge of changing men's behavior. I'm going to read this. This is an editorial, but it really is interesting. The development of a totalitarian government always coincides with sweeping efforts to socially engineer the population to adhere to less rebellious behaviors. Specific groups that present a threat to the regime are usually identified and targeted with propaganda or indoctrination. In tandem, the rest of the population is also conditioned to fear those groups and treat them with suspicion. In this way, the establishment elites mold the more submissive public into a shield that protects them from the revolutionaries that might dethrone them. Never thought of myself as a revolutionary. But what happens when the social engineers want to create tyranny on a global scale? Well, then they go after masculinity on a global basis. And they use women as the victims of toxic masculinity as the reason why masculinity, the nature of masculinity, must be changed, must be attenuated. So Australia has gone so far as to create a ministry in charge of changing men's behavior in one of their states there, the state of Victoria. Very toxic male behavior must be modified. But I do want to read this because it's so well written. Australia is simply acting as a beta test for similar programs to be implemented in other countries. The use of feminism is necessary to fabricate a rationale. They can't merely attack men for being men or attack men for potentially being rebellious against authoritarian governments. There has to be a victim that needs protection so that the attack on men appears justified. Those who defend masculinity are thus by extension accused of threatening the safety of women. In other words, the totalitarians become the good guys because they supposedly have women's best interests at heart. And since men are everywhere, the totalitarians need to be everywhere too, so they can keep that terrifying masculinity at bay. Can't even talk about this, can we? Can't talk about the military. Can't question the LGBTQ+. Can't question the Judaism issue, the Jewish issue. Can't question blacks. We've got all these areas roped off where there can be no discourse, because if you question the Jews, you're anti-Semitic. Question the blacks, you're racist. You question feminism, you're a toxic masculine misogynist. You question the gays, you're a homophobe. Question the military, you're not patriotic, you're traitorous. And we have to look at how the regimes of the world are using these groups to establish what? Global governance. Global governance. Global governance. Since I saw you last, Russia and North Korea signed a partnership agreement. Wasn't that long ago President Trump was standing in North Korea shaking hands with Kim Jong-un? Well, that went the way of the dodo bird, didn't it? The U.S. has now authorized Ukraine to strike anywhere in Russia where forces may cross the border. So that's why we're having these attacks in Russia. And guess what Ukraine has already done? Just yesterday, they said, nope, not far enough. Let us go farther into Russia. Because, of course, what the Ukrainians want is as big a war as possible to bail their asses out. And what's it all about? Spending money on weapons. Washington just approved a small $360 million arms sale to Taiwan. $360 million here, $360 million there. Pretty soon it's real money. In the meantime, how do you think the Chinese feel about that? So for all these people that argued with me about the history of the Ukraine going back to 1975, NATO and Russia, our warships are 60 miles off of China's coast. We're supporting an island nation, Taiwan, that is comprised of Chinese people that ran out of China in 1949 and took all the wealth of the country with them. Basically, they were pirates. We're meddling in internal Chinese affairs. We're not taught it that way, but it's China. China on the mainland, China and Taiwan. We're getting involved in a domestic. I saw a thing on X yesterday, picture of China. Instead of it being China, it said East Taiwan. Are we kidding ourselves here? I mean, we're losing our mind. This is the arrogance of this mindset that I'm questioning, which I'm sure I'm going to get, a beating over. But I'm going to be brave enough and stand up and say it's arrogance. It's arrogant. I mean, my family is from the Ukraine. When we were there, it was Russia. Russia. This is Russia and the Ukraine. Russia, Ukraine, two countries, one country, two country, one country. This has been going on for 1,000 years. And I recognize that there's a Ukrainian identity and a Ukrainian nationhood. But there's also right in the same geography, a Russian identity and a Russian nationhood. We're getting again involved in a domestic. And when I say we're getting again, what kind of arrogance is this? Why are American citizens interested in doing this? What kind of arrogance is involved in believing that we can meddle in the affairs of other people like this, like it's our job? I mean, the Botswanans don't think so. The Ugandans don't think so. The Mexicans don't think so. I mean, Mexican foreign policy is not involved with getting its military involved in these dramas. They just want to do business with people. It goes back to manifest destiny, which we've talked about. It's the belief that we're special. And we got all these people that don't believe in God, but they still believe we're special. Because you got to believe you're special if you're going to go get involved in a domestic. Anybody ever gotten involved in a domestic before? I have. You got to believe that somehow it's your responsibility to do it. And the times that I've done it, it didn't turn out well for me. I remember the first time, risked my life getting involved in the domestic. And then after the thing got sorted out, the woman who was getting beat up, she didn't even press charges. So the whole thing, which almost cost me my life, ended up and the cops just looked at me and said, nope, nothing we can do about it. She doesn't want to press charges. This was in Kansas in about, must have been 92. I was young and quite ready to do anything, I guess, at that time. And I'm not saying I wouldn't intervene now. But man, when you intervene in a domestic, it's the responsibility of the toxic masculine to defend people. The weak against the strong. But that's on an individual basis. I guess, as I'm working out my own psychology with you here in this therapy session, I guess the case could be made if I'm willing to defend the weak on a personal basis, why wouldn't I be willing to defend the weak on an international basis? And that's something I have to think through before I see you again. But it doesn't work out well. And when we do that at a policy level, it really doesn't take into consider. Well, I guess it does because we're voting for these people. We're voting for people that want to have an empire.
Yeah.
Do you want to be in an empire?
No. It sounds great on paper, but watching it practice out, no, it's never good.
It doesn't seem to work out for the empires that we can study historically. So for all the people that might be tuning in for the first time, I don't even want to argue about right, wrong, or indifferent currently. I just want you to go back and study the history of empires. It doesn't end up good. So basically what you're saying is, my children and grandchildren be damned, I'm getting mine. And you could not come up with a more materialist, narcissistic, and selfish worldview than saying, works for me, don't care if it works for anybody else. I guess I answered my own question, didn't I? There we go. And in the meantime, because, what made this country great was self-governance and creativity. But as we go deeper into empire, that is in contradiction. Those two things, self-governance and creativity and empire, they don't go together. It's oil and water. So guess what happens? The United States dropped out of the global competitiveness ranking because, they rank, there's this organization that ranks global competitiveness, and the United States dropped out of the top 10 for the first time. Not a surprise. How can we have creativity and freedom, or the freedom that creates creativity, and have an empire? Just doesn't work. Just doesn't work. Well, there's a great thought leader that I've been following for quite a long time. His name is Cardinal Vigano, and he's a Catholic Church governor. He's a cardinal, and he's been a very outspoken critic of the current Pope and the current policies being implemented by that Pope. He has called Pope Francis a liberal and a servant of Satan. Cardinal Vigano has demanded Pope Francis's resignation, and he has suggested that the Vatican's Swiss guards arrest the 87-year-old pontiff. Now, after receiving years of this verbal attack, Pope Francis has struck back against Archbishop Carlo Vigano. The Vatican has indicted Vigano, and they have made a decree and charged the cardinal with the crime of schism and the denial of the legitimacy of Pope Francis, which he has done. Such trials are they're very rare. I mean, we're talking about over thousands of years. This is rare stuff. And the move underscores a recent effort by the Vatican to take more formal action against the arch-conservatives who have sought to undermine Francis's papacy from the inside of the church. Arch-conservatives? I don't know. How about just conservatives? I'm reading my script. You got liberals and arch-conservatives. I mean, what you got is people that don't agree with each other. You got nationalists and globalists, or people who believe in the search for truth, and people who believe in materialism. And the argument of Vigano is that Pope Francis does not believe in God. He actually believes in Satan. Conviction will lead to Vigano's defrocking and excommunication, which is a big deal for a guy that's devoted his life to the Catholic Church. Well, Vigano has never been one to take things on the chin and lie down. He takes it on the chin and he stands up. First of all, before we get beyond it, if you go look at the thumbnail or the picture that I have up on YouTube, which is kind of an advertisement for this episode number 125, The Pope, the Cardinal, and the Snake, take a look at that picture. That picture looks like a snake to me. Did that look like a snake to you, that picture?
I didn't really get a good look. Let me look.
Well, take a look at that.
Oh, yeah.
You think that looks like a snake
totally
there?
Can see a snake.
You see that snake? Can you put that up so everybody take a look for? Can everybody get a look at that, do you think? Look at that. That looks like a snake, doesn't it? You got two fangs there and two eyes. Looks like a snake head. That's the audience hall in the Vatican. Isn't that interesting? The architects that the Vatican hired to do the interior decorating of where the Pope receives dignitaries and the people, that's what they came up with. It's a little scary, isn't it, Tanner?
I gotta say one thing about it. I don't know what it's called, but it's the phenomenon in our head that we recognize faces very easily. So I could see that they're trying to make something symmetrical, but at the same time, that is like a lot like a snake.
You know, you
It's
could
just
you got the money of the Catholic Church. You can make any interior design, any special environment you want to. Because when you're going to meet the Pope, that's a special environment, right? They could have done anything.
yeah.
They had unlimited money. They had unlimited time. This is what they came up with. I think that's not an accident. So let's listen for 13 minutes to Cardinal Vigano responding. And this is the whole this is the pith of today's podcast. Now Vigano is going to be saying things I've been saying on the podcast for 124 episodes. It doesn't make me smart. What I'm saying to you is, if we're not seeing this, we're either intentionally not looking at it, or as they say, denial is not just a river in Egypt. A lot of people just don't want to deal with it. They just deny that it's happening. Or there's a lot of people on the payroll that are pampered by this globalist machine. They're pampered by this globalist machine, Scrapping Beauty. And if we're going to confront this evil, we're going to have to be honest about how it works in our culture. Please play this warning from Cardinal Vigano. It's 13 minutes long. Former apostolic nuncio to the United States, Vigano was. He's a former Secretary General of the Vatican City State. He exposed financial corruption in the Vatican, which was profound. And he also confronted sexual abuse by Pope Francis and other church leaders. Didn't hear much about that, did we? And he has this important message that we're all going to get to listen to. Whatever your personal beliefs are, this message is for everyone.
Dear friends, for 2 years now, we have been witnessing a global coup d'etat in which a financial and ideological elite has succeeded in seizing control of part of the national government, public and private institutions, the media, the judiciary, politicians and religious leaders. All of these, without distinction, have become enslaved to these new masters who ensure power, money, and social affirmation to their accomplices. Fundamental rights, which up until yesterday were presented as inviolable, have been trampled underfoot in the name of an emergency. Today, a health emergency, tomorrow, an ecological emergency, and after that, an internet emergency. This global coup d'etat deprives citizens of any possibility of defense, since the legislative, executive, and judicial powers are complicit in the violation of law, justice, and the purpose for which they exist. It is a global coup d'etat, because this criminal attack against citizens extends to the whole world, with every very rare exception. It is a world war where the enemies are all of us, even those who unwittingly have not yet understood the significance of what is happening. It is a war fought not with weapons, but with illegitimate rules, wicked economic policies, and intolerable limitation of natural rights. Supranational organizations, financed in large measure by the conspirator of this coup d'etat, are interfering in the government of individual nations and in the lives, relationships, and health of billions of people. They are doing it for money, certainly, but even more. So in order to centralize power so as to establish a planetary dictatorship. It is the Great Reset of the World Economic Forum, the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. It is the plan of the New World Order, in which a universal republic enslaves everyone and a religious of humanity counsels faith in Christ. In the face of this global coup d'etat, it is necessary to form an international anti-globalist alliance which gathers all those who want to oppose the dictatorship, who have no intention of becoming slaves to a faceless power, who are not willing to cancel their own identity, their own individuality, their own religious faith. If the attack is global, the defense must also be global. I call upon rulers, politicians and religious leaders, intellectuals and all people of goodwill, inviting them to unite in an alliance that launches an anti-globalist manifesto, refuting point by point the errors and deviation of this dystopia of the New World Order, and proposing concrete alternatives for a political program inspired by the common good, the moral principles of Christianity, traditional values, the protection of life and the natural family, the protection of business and work, the promotion of education and research, and respect for creation. This anti-globalist alliance will have to bring together the nations that intend to escape the infernal yoke of tyranny and affirm their own sovereignty, forming agreements of mutual collaboration with nations and people who share the principle and the common yearning for freedom, justice, and goodness. It will have to denounce the crimes of the elite, identify those responsible, denounce them to international tribunals, and limit their excessive power and harmful influence. It will have to prevent the action of the lobbies, above all by fighting against the corruption of state officials and those who work in the information industry, and by freezing the capital used to destabilize the social order. In nations where the government is subservient to the elite, they will be able to establish popular resistance movements and communities of national liberation, including representatives of all sectors of society who propose a radical reform of politics inspired by the common good and firmly opposed to the neo-Malthusian project of the globalist agenda. I invite all those who want to defend a traditional Christian society to meet together in an international forum to be held as soon as possible, in which representatives of various nations come together to present a serious, concrete, and clear proposal. My appeal is made to political leaders and to rulers who care about good of their citizens, leaving aside the old system of political parties and the logic imposed by a system enslaved to power and money. I call the Christian nation together from east to west, inviting head of state and the healthy forces of institutions, the economy, labor, university, healthcare, and information to join a common project, disrupting the old system and putting aside the hostility that are desired by the enemies of humanity in the name of divide et impera. We do not accept our adversaries' rules because they are made precisely to prevent us from reacting and organizing an effective and incisive opposition. I call upon nations and their citizens to ally themselves under the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, the only King and Savior, the Prince of Peace. In hoc signo vinces. Let us found this anti-globalist alliance. Let us give. It is a simple and clear program. And let us free humanity from a totalitarian regime that brings together in itself the horrors of the worst dictatorships of all time. If we continue to delay, if we do not understand the threat that looms over us all, if we do not react by organizing ourselves into a firm and courageous resistance, this infernal regime that is establishing itself everywhere will not be able to be stopped. And may the Almighty God assist us and protect us.
In this time of global crisis, it is critical that we are not divided because of our different beliefs. We must join together against this universal threat. This is not a fight about religion, politics, or opinions. This is a war on all of humanity. Please unite with all the good people worldwide. Let us stand together as one. The globalists want to enslave every soul on earth. Klaus Schwab said, "You'll own nothing, have no privacy, and be happy." Indeed, because they will own everything and steal all our rights. If we remain silent, they will succeed. Thank you, Tanner. Well, that's Cardinal Vigano saying in 13 minutes what I've gone 125 episodes to try to explicate and why I'm doing these podcasts. And we really have a lot of work to do. You've got your list of 20 people. Send this out to all 20. There are going to be people that say, oh, wait a sec, the guy's a Catholic. No good. He himself is saying this is not about our individual belief. This is about all of humanity uniting without a reliance on the past political and religious divisions. We're seeking a new culture, a culture that's refreshed, that's based on the well-being of every citizen. A rebalancing from a material perspective, which is dominating this world, the New World Order, to including in that worldview the search for truth, which is being pushed out so that a technocratic scientific revolution can create a worldwide tyranny and take away from me everything that I hold dear, which is my self-governance and my ability to search for truth. And, this is just another guy saying it. Now, It's not just another guy. He's a cardinal of the Catholic Church. He's a man of tremendous learning, tremendous accomplishment, great gravitas. 2,000 people have watched this on YouTube as of this morning. 2,000. 2,000 people. Have you heard of Cardinal Vigano before? Tanner, had you ever heard of Cardinal Vigano?
No.
Well, now you have. And he's no lightweight. He's no fluff. This guy is a serious thinker and a serious player. Well, what's the response to this? Can you pop up this picture that's in Hebrew? I saw this on X. This is what is the other side of the coin, or this is the other street corner. This is from some person. We don't know who they are because they've got an acronym. But the word is, or what they wrote is, Louisiana just passed legislation where the 10 Commandments will be displayed in every classroom. Of course, they're going to be displayed in English in every classroom. But the 10 Commandments come out of the Old Testament and they're written in Hebrew. So this person says Louisiana mandates that a large, legible display. Louisiana, the state of Louisiana mandates, it's law, that a large, legible display of the 10 Commandments are to be posted in every classroom. So here they are. And what this person is saying is, look, it's Jewish. It's those horrible Jews asserting control over our children. Because what this person is interested in doing is overturning or reversing the 5,700 years of culture that predates the New World Order. And what this person is saying is, look, it's the Jews. It's the Jews. We live in a Judeo-Christian culture, and Christ came to fulfill the law, not to overturn it. Remember that one? But see, they're going to go to work on Christ too. They are every day. So let's know what the stakes of the game is here. The stakes of the game is to get to the technocracy that they seek, they have to end faith. And here's another example of it, of linking the moral and ethical bedrock of our society to Jews, and then having this anti-Semitism somehow cancel out this beautiful moral foundation of human behavior. And that's why we put the snake up, because there's certainly, wrongdoing within the Jewish community, without a question of a doubt. Look what's happening in the Catholic Church. We've got a cardinal and a pope at odds with each other, a schism. There's a schism in the Jewish community. There's schisms everywhere. That's why Cardinal Vigano says, let's look beyond these schisms. Let's unite as humanity to fight off this global tyranny, which is using these schisms, these gaps, creating these gaps to divide and conquer, which he, spoke in Latin, but it's divide and conquer. They're dividing and conquering us. We got now 5 groups: Jews, blacks, gays, women, and the military veterans. 5 sacrosanct groups that are being used to advance this global governance. Got to deal with it, Scrapping Beauty. Got to deal with it. So how does the coup d'etat work? Well, let's just say it works in every possible dimension, at every possible level. It's supernatural in its application. The little things like automatic voting registration in 23 states. In 23 states, when you get your driver's license, you get a you're registered to vote when you get your driver's license. And here in Minnesota, illegal aliens, illegal immigrants can get a valid, legal, lawful Minnesota driver's license. So, they have to tell me, as a Minnesota citizen, how this is going to work. And here we have the Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson opining, it's important that we make voting easy and accessible for Minnesotans who are eligible. It's important that we make voting easy and accessible for Minnesotans who are eligible. It's equally important to ensure the process remains secure as ever. Here's what you need to know about how the new system works. Well, the Public Safety Department reviews documents such as birth certificates and passports to review age and citizenship for voter registration. They also look at documents previously provided by the people who apply for the enhanced driver. And they just go on. They go through a process of how they're going to make things secure and safe, how only lawful voters will be registered to vote. I'm supposed to trust my government. Tanner, do you trust the government?
No, what? Not at all.
Well, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I
no,
never
not
asked
at
you
all.
that question. Wow. Trust. Well, trust but verify. So I guess for the people that are politically motivated, being on absentee ballot boards is pretty darn important. So that's one little slice. Let's just make voting easy. I was thinking about this morning. Voting is made easy. Everybody needs to have access to voting. Okay, that's one street corner, but it's the most sacred thing we do in our republic. It's the power we have to self-govern. Why does it have to be easy? And I don't mean that there has to be requirements. I'm saying, why are we continuously being told it has to be easy? Why can't I register to vote? Why can't there be some minimal investment that I have to make as a citizen? Minimal. I'm not saying you got to pass a test or pay a tax. I'm just saying, is it that big of a deal to consciously register yourself to vote? I mean, these are things we got to sort out because we accept things on face value because the childlike heart says, yeah, it should be easy. Everybody should vote. Because, of course, people don't vote. Look at how low our voter participation is. Let's make it easier. Let's make it easier. And there's a lot of organizations out there that are saying that legal immigration is good and that everybody that lives here should vote, whether they're a citizen or not. We have to understand the coup d'etat. It's going to require us to break some eggs, to say some things that are going to make people uncomfortable. And then, you got this military thing. And I'm not here to pitch Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's down in Georgia and it has nothing to do with me. But there's a black man, can't question black, a retired brigadier general, can't question someone who served in the military and achieved the rank of brigadier general. Wow. He got into senior leadership. Sean Harris is his name. Brigadier General Sean Harris. Last night I won the Democrat nomination to run against Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm not sure why, but since then I keep seeing posts by people saying that they never unfollowed but are no longer following us. Can you please retweet this so people can find our account? I watched this guy. He's put this up many times. That's not sacred honor. He's lying. He's military intelligence. He's using this lie to increase his social media engagement. But he's a brigadier general. I'm supposed to trust him because he's military. Do you understand the scam, Tanner? Did I
Yeah, you hit that dead
did
on.
I get that out there?
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote it, not me. I just happen to follow him, so I've seen him do it many times.
So you've seen this posted multiple
Many
times?
times he says this.
Yeah.
Many
Then
times.
it's just him farming for engagement.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But he's got sacred honor.
Hmm.
He's a brigadier general. Can't question his sacred honor. Can't question his motives.
What sucks is like if you point this out, people all over the internet will go, well, that's just how the internet works. Like this is like normal practice to people, especially on X. is like trying to trick people into engaging with their account so then they get more numbers. It's kind of silly. There's no
I
honor
think
with
it's
it.
fine for a person who hasn't lived a life of service and dedicated himself to upholding the Constitution of the United States in a military perspective, like candidate the Cantaloupe, Joe Frazier, who signed a pledge that he would not run in the primary unless he was endorsed by the Republican Party. He made a commitment. Oh, hey. No, don't take my word for it. I changed my, if your word's no good, if you're tricky, why would we trust that when you got into political office, you'd be honest and represent the will of the people and work for the people's well-being? These kind of little things we talked about this, the pantomime, the tells. This is a tell about who this guy is or who this guy is hiring. Like Joe Frazier has this prayer working for him. I mean, these people are not honorable. They're using the honor of military combat and risking their lives to manipulate the citizens of the country. And I can't question that. I guess I can't, but I'm going to. And if we don't question it, every problem is a nail and these people are hammers. So if you're going to vote for this, if you're not going to question this, get used to the open border, the forever wars, and being taxed into oblivion, because that's what these people represent. This is how the coup d'etat takes place. The coup d'etat. And here's a message from the Connecticut Bar Association. Another way to take over the minds, hearts, souls of the people. Words matter. Reckless words attacking the integrity of our judicial system matter even more. In the wake of the recent trial and conviction of former President Donald Trump, public officials have issued statements claiming that the trial was a sham, a hoax, rigged. Our justice system is corrupt, and the judge was corrupt and highly unethical, and that the jury was partisan and pre-cooked. Others claim the trial was America's first communist show trial, a reference to historic purges of high-ranking communist officials that were used to eliminate political threats. These claims are unsubstantiated and reckless. Such statements can provoke acts of violence against those serving the public as employees of the judicial branch. Indeed, such statements have resulted in threats to those fulfilling their civic obligations by sitting on the jury, as evidenced by social media cases urging that the jurors be shot or hanged. As importantly, such statements strike at the very integrity of the third branch of government and sow distrust in the public for the courts where it does not belong. What the Connecticut Bar Association is telling its members is, be very careful how you criticize what's going on. Now, of course, you have to be a member of the bar to practice law. This is how the coup d'etat proceeds. The stifling of free speech, the expansion of military control of the civilian sphere, the morphing of our political system by preying upon our sense of justice and fair play as American citizens. Everyone should vote. Everyone should have access to the polls. Yes, of course. In an infinite number of ways across the whole dimension of human experience, we're being moved away from self-governance and interdependence to totalitarian regime that creates codependence. And there are benefits. I mean, porn's a click away. Marijuana's free. Universal basic income. We're not going to have to work. Benefits. Cost? My well-being. Porn, drugs, free money. My health and well-being. Everything's plus or minus. What are we going to choose here? Because we choose. We, the people, get to choose. We get to choose. Which brings up the great question, because Vigano is a Catholic, and he says we have to unite under the cross of the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ. Are we a Christian nation? How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to come up with this? I mean, it's, it doesn't say in any of our founding documents that we're a Christian nation. A creator is identified and natural rights are identified. And the people that wrote that document were mostly Christians. Well, we're trying to work this out. Tanner, can you please play number 3?
They're inside.
Hurry, Neo.
Can't be. Check him. He's gone. Goodbye, Mr. Anderson.
Neo. I'm not afraid anymore. The Oracle told me that I would fall in love and that the man that I loved would be the one. So you see, you can't be dead. You can't be. Because I love you. You hear me? I love you. Now get up.
No.
How?
He is the one.
That's a rather iconic scene, and I play it for several reasons. Number one, uh, that's the story of Christ. And the reason The Matrix was so successful, one of the reasons beyond the technology, came out in '99. These people were prescient. Uh, it's the story of the one who rose from the dead. So it was building on a pre-existing cultural theme of intergalactic proportions. It's the fundamental narrative of that 5,700-year tradition. But if you look at that scene, there's two things I want to draw your attention to. One, God didn't raise Neo from the dead. A woman did. There's no God involved in this deal. That's an interesting change. And this is a very iconic scene in a very iconic movie. It's had a lot of influence on a lot of people. So being shot and killed and then coming back to life, which is a miracle, is the miracle of a woman's love. And then if you looked at that last scene where suddenly Neo was able to see the programming or the energy of the room, he had reached a heightened state of awareness where he'd gone beyond the material um, sense perception and was seeing behind the curtain, so to speak. And that gave him an edge in his well-being because Agent Smith was unable to defeat him. In fact, he was able to destroy Agent Smith in that scene. And then he could fly and he was free. He was really, truly free of the human condition, or in that case, of the Matrix, which is really kind of the same thing. So when I ask myself, um, are we a Christian nation? We're struggling to come up with a way to be as American citizens that is not exclusive, that's inclusive. Because we have Christians here and Jews here and Muslims here and non-believers here and agnostics are here and we have all these different groups. And the first fundamental piece is we've got social engineers that are exacerbating the difference between these groups. And that is not an accident. That is done on purpose. So the pre-existing uh, tendency towards division is being exacerbated mostly in our universities through identity politics. But we have these documents that don't address a state religion, but do address a spiritual life, that do address the protection of my individual rights to proceed in the search for truth as I see fit. And that's why in the candidacy of Royce White and other American citizens that are running for office around the country, such a big deal is starting to emerge around the idea of American citizenship, which is going to require us citizens to understand how that works. How that works. And we're going to keep talking about this because the uh, move to wrap our country in the flag of Christianity or the Judeo-Christian traditions upon which it rests, it's an easy move. And I'm not saying it's not the move to make. It's something I want to work with you together on because we're going to cut new ground here on the Professor Penn podcast. This community, we're cutting new ground. We're saying things that people don't like us to say, like military members are pampered, not in terms of their pensions and in their military benefits, their healthcare benefits. That's not what I mean. I mean in our inability to question what they're doing in their post-military life. What policies, what beliefs are they able to spread from their heightened, pampered state of respect because they risked their lives 25 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago? Because none of us are getting out alive. We're all going to die, okay? We're all risking our lives every day. But we've elevated this because they risked their lives for the empire. Let's think about that. Let's think that one through. And we don't have a lot of time to do it. because the Russian Federation has now made the United States complicit in this terrible crime that happened in the Crimea, where U.S. ATACMS missiles led to the injury and death of hundreds of people that were on a beach. You can go look at the YouTube video of it. It's absolutely awful. It was civilian casualties. This ATACMS did not kill Russian soldiers and injure Russian soldiers. These were civilians. And then I got to read people saying, we warned you, Russians, don't go to the beach in the Crimea. Wow, people's arrogance and their callousness. And that kind of callousness comes when you are arrogant. It's so profound. So could you just please play number 5, Tanner, as we get ready to wrap up? I'm going to read this. This is Putin at a recent event. The West, as always, as you said, is turning up the heat, escalating the situation. Apparently, they are counting the fact that we Russians will be scared at some point. But at the same time, they also say they want to achieve a strategic defeat of Russia on the battlefield. What does that mean for Russia? For Russia, it means the end of statehood. That's what it means. It means the end of the 1,000-year history of the Russian state. I think this is clear to everyone. And then the question arises, why should we be afraid? Isn't it better to go until the end? It's a simple, formal logic. So what Putin is saying is here, this is an existential issue for the Russians. So whatever we're doing, we got to work it out. I don't know the hour, and I don't know how much time we have. I think St. Augustine said something like, treat your body as if you're going to live forever, and treat your soul as if you're going to die today or tomorrow. And we need to be that way as American citizens. Because these people aren't kidding around. And we're still kidding around over here. And I'm not kidding around. Did you make your list of 20 people? Did you go to the precinctstrategy.com? Are you finding a way to improve your well-being? Are you working on your self-governance? At the end, I'm going to ask you to go and all your friends and neighbors, because we need your support. Go to freepeopleradio.com, the store. TireGet.com. It's everything you need in tires, all at the right price. We'll put them on right in your backyard. Call in. I'll help you get just what you need. We need your support. We're expanding our operations here based on the support we get from you, our viewing audience, and we're so glad you're here. Thank you for joining. I want to go out on the eve of this debate. Remember, we will not be together on Thursday. We'll be back hopefully together, God willing, on Tuesday night next week, July 2nd. I want to go out with a 2 minute and 54 minute piece with Frank Sinatra and Gene Kelly. And why am I doing that? Because we've got our current popular music, which is highly sexualized, and part of this coup d'etat, this world coup d'etat, involves popular culture and entertainment. Obviously. If it's not obvious, then you either believe in denial, not just a river in Egypt, or you're all for this. If you're all for this and you're watching me, you're probably taking notes on me. Hey, I'm for the constitutional process. Let me know when you're going to overthrow that, because then we're going to know tyranny is full-blown. But we played Elvis Presley at the beginning. He had tremendous sex appeal. He was still keeping it in the center of the road from our current vantage point. But when Elvis came out, people thought he was way too far because they were juxtaposing it with Frank Sinatra, who was the king of pop at the exact same time. So this piece I'm playing from Sinatra was filmed in the 50s. That piece with Elvis was filmed in the early 60s. It's not that long ago. Look at how fast we've come by following the material road and ignoring progressively, the search for truth. So let's go out with Frank Sinatra. I want to thank you for joining. I'm just trying to bring up some of the great icons of the past, because if we know where we've been, we'll have a better sense of figuring out how we got to where we are, and then we can make a group decision, a whole republic. All the citizens can decide where do we want to go, because it's really up to us still. We'll look back at some of the fantastic and beautiful art that's been generated in the freedom and American citizenship granted to us. Thank you very much for joining, and have a great weekend.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, I'll go. Joe, I'll tell her. It's up to me to do it, not you. No, look. I'll go out to the studio and tell her it's all a phony. She'll be good and sore, but at me, right? I'll tell her how I pulled you into it and how it all happened just because you're crazy about her. Oh, what's the use, Joe? We're due back in San Diego tomorrow, and our leave is practically up. What difference does that make? Susan's not a girl just for a leave. Well, she's the kind you come home to. And... Well, this'll do it. Joe. Yeah? There's something I've been... Yeah, I guess you're right. Okay. Well, I'll meet you at that little bar near Susie's house about 6. That way I can tell you how she took it. Unless you want to come with me. You just gonna sit here? Yeah, I'm tired.
I fall in love too easily. I fall in love too fast. I fall in love too terribly hard for love to ever last. My heart should be well schooled, 'cause I've been fooled in the past, and still I fall